You're listening to JetNation Radio, the official podcast of JetNation.com, the largest independent fan site in the NFL. Be sure to check out our forums and talk all things Jets with thousands of other diehard Jets fans. Now, to get you up to date on all the latest Jets news, notes, and quotes, here are your hosts, Dylan Terriman and Alex Varallo.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of JetNation Radio. These are your hosts, Alex Varallo and Dylan Terriman. Dylan, how are we doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing well. I was not able to join you for the last podcast. We had some scheduling issues. I knew it was a little holiday, but you killed it with Emery. I'm so glad that he was able to come on. You even snuck in some of my questions, which I was happy about, and we got some confirmation that he'll come back for another episode. So I think all's good, and we have some more guests lined up, including today, so I'm excited to get into this one.
Yes, absolutely. That was a lot of fun last week. The fact that Emery Hunt from the Football Game Plan was able to join us at Jet Nation and give his insight about, what he feels what the Jets team has got going on. And as you just mentioned, we do have a guest joining us tonight, our very own Greenbean. If you haven't seen his content, you have to look up Greenbean. He's, doing a lot of stuff on YouTube, on his Instagram page. He's collaborating with other YouTubers and, going on doing live video shows with guys like Matt O'Leary and just a bunch of other, Jets heads out there. There's so much content going around. So, it's really, really great that we have people like Greenbean a part of our team that, can broaden, our Jets takes and all of our thoughts. And, we live, breathe, and sleep about this team. And, I'm always get excited to have Greenbean join us. So he'll probably be joining us in the next 10 to 15 minutes. And tonight we're just going to, go over a few things. I'm going to pick his brain. I know, we each have some topics lined up for tonight. We're going to go into some strengths and weaknesses. That's tonight's name of the show. So we're going to get into what we feel are the strong points of this roster, and then we're going to, shine a little bit of light and, not try to criticize the team, but try to work through where our weak spots are and see what the Jets can do to improve those areas before we get to September and the games start to count. But before I get too far ahead of myself here, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Miles Social, for all their support that they do for Jet Nation. If you're a business owner and you're looking to improve your company's social media status, go to Miles Social and see what they can do for your company today. Now, Dylan, this is the time of the year where there's really, really not a lot of crazy stories going around. We've gotten through the free agent frenzy. We've gotten through the draft. We've signed, I think, all of our rookies, if I'm not mistaken, which is really, really great because in years past, we've always had one or two guys that seem to wait until, August, and some players have actually missed a couple days. So I think we're in pretty good standards as far as getting our guys to sign their deals, and we're going through voluntary practices at this point, and, some players are attending, some players aren't. Congratulations to Makai Beckton. He just had his child just recently, and that was one of the reasons why he hasn't been present. So congrats to him on becoming a new dad. I know the team is looking forward to having the big guy back in action and in the building at Florham Park. So basically, what we're going to start the show tonight is we want to touch upon some of the press conferences that have gone down over the last week or so. Each of our coaches have taken some time to just answer some questions from the guys at the beat and give a little bit of perspective on, what they're trying to do, what direction they're trying to take this team into this season. And, Dylan, you had some great notes written up about that. So why don't you share some of your thoughts from the recent press conferences that the Jets have had?
Yeah, so within the last week or so, we were able to get press conferences from Robert Saleh and both coordinators, Mike LaFleur and Jeff Ulrich. So I just took down some quick notes from each of them. I thought a lot of the points that they made were good. A lot of good questions were asked, especially with the Mike LaFleur one. So I'll start with the Rob Saleh one. He explained how OTA reps were split. There's 10 reps, I believe they're individual reps, and they're split up 5, 3, 2 for the quarterbacks, meaning Zach Wilson would get 5. Joe Flacco, I guess, as QB2 would get 3, and then Mike White would get 2. And then the positional coaches then work within those 10 reps to get their players reps. So for Zach Wilson's 5 reps, you might have, hypothetically, your top 3 guys, Moore, Davis, Wilson, and then a variation of maybe some Braxton and Denzel mixed in with that as well. So it was good to see how exactly they're split up, to see just how much time everybody's getting. I personally thought QB1 was getting more than 5 out of 10 reps. So it is kind of cool to see how exactly they split it up, but it's also cool to see that the position coaches have to work within that to get their best amount of reps for each position. So it's obviously just all a puzzle that they have to put together for practice, and it was just good to shine that light on that Robert Saleh was able to let us see into how exactly they do it. The next part they had was a rookie injury update. Jeremy Rucker, he's still rehabbing his foot injury. Saleh said he's on the sidelines with the strength and conditioning coaches, so at least he's out there. He's not doing anything other than conditioning on the sidelines, so hopefully we'll see him sooner rather than later. But, again, it's a rookie, so they're not going to rush to get him back. This isn't from his presser exactly, but it goes into the next point. DJ Reid had a press conference where he was asked about playing slot cornerback, and he said he's been primarily playing right side cornerback, and they have not talked at all about playing in the slot. Maybe there's some word out there on Twitter or something from the beat writers that he could play in the slot with Bryce on the outside, but I don't think so. But that leads into my next one, where Bryce Hall is taking cornerback 1 reps at OTAs, and that Sauce Gardner quote has to earn it. That's what Saleh said. So obviously it's probably a lot of coach speak, considering he was the 4th overall pick. Glenn alluded to this on his YouTube, his most recent YouTube video. And I think it's kind of BS, coach speak, that Sauce is not going to be a starter day one. I think when it gets down to, preseason and, the beginning of the season, obviously Sauce Gardner's going to be out there, whether he's opposite Bryce Hall or DJ Reid. My money's on DJ Reid, obviously, but Sauce is going to be out there. So Echols, another cornerback, he's dealing with a shoulder injury. Saleh said he's bigger than last year, though, as far as his size from a physical standpoint, so he's excited to get him in and compete. I think that's why Bryce Hall has been able to get so many reps, which good for Bryce Hall, because in my opinion, I think he needs the most reps out of the 4 of the guys that I mentioned. So it's good that at least, Echols is on the upswing with his medical, and that Bryce is able to come in and take those reps. Tweaking the system around Sauce, he said they play more man than people realize, but Sauce can also play zone, which is obvious. I think if you're a cornerback in today's NFL and you're not, or in today's even college game, hoping to get to the next level, I think you need to be able to play both. Obviously, there's some that are more lenient to one, and obviously Sauce is more man than zone, but you could put on his film, and he's playing zone. You can see it with his butt to the sidelines. So he also said they're not going to put him in a position where he won't succeed. I think that's obviously it's coach speak, but it's good coach speak, because it's not something that we're accustomed to hearing, especially with Adam Gase. I hate even bringing him up because we're so far past him, but you never once heard him say we're going to put the players in the best position to win a football game for us. It was always just no, we're going to do what we do, and if we can't do it, we're just going to still try to do it. And that meant Frank Gore on 3rd and 8. So, it is what it is. This is probably the best quote that he put out from his press conference, and that was about Rob Calabrese, the quarterback's coach currently. He said that he was courted by other teams for other jobs and even coordinator opportunities. and that Calabrese elected to stay with New York. And I think that's huge. One, because he's a young guy, and there's not too many young guys that the Jets have had in their coaching staff that have that path, so to speak, where they could be an offensive coordinator and then potentially a head coach, like, down the line. And I think Calabrese is one of those good in-house coaches where if Mike LaFleur were to succeed in years 2, 3, 4 with the Jets and move on to a head coaching position, which most Jets fans ultimately, I guess, would hope would happen because that means their offense is really good. So Rob Calabrese is that guy, and I'm glad that he saw something in the Jets enough to stay over a potential promotion. So that was huge. And then we wouldn't be true to ourselves if we didn't have a Denzel Mims update in the middle of June. He looks good. He's in the second year of the system. They're working on his catch point work with contested catches. That was the one thing that Saleh said. And he said, as well as grasping the offense. So he kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit with Mims, in my opinion, saying that Mims needed to get stronger at the catch point and really go up and use his frame and his body to make those contested catches like we saw, because last year we were not good in that area. Corey Davis probably was our leading guy, and I don't think he had more than 7 contested catches. So ultimately, Denzel Mims needs to show it, but they think that he's going to be a lot better this year. So that was all I had from Saleh. Mike LaFleur was the next one that I watched. And the main thing I had was just a question that I believe DJ Bieniemy asked, and he's always asking the best questions in the press conferences. I usually steal the quotes that the coaches give because his questions usually get the most, like, film-type talk out of it, and that's usually what I go for in the press conferences. But Mike LaFleur basically said that the offense doesn't always read safety shell, meaning they don't always determine, hey, if there's 2 high safeties and one rotates down to a 1 high shell, we're going to do this, or vice versa, 1 to 2 high. They're not going to always look at the safeties and determine what happens from there. He said a lot of times they just have a play where the quarterback has to just look in the exact same spot every time, and that's all he has to do. So basically the quote came back as far as pass game concepts, not reading the defense. He said you have quick game, quick hitting dropbacks, which they call completion plays, intermediate game, which is 7-step drops, and double chips on each side from the protection so that your offensive line holds up because it is a longer dropback. Then you have your turn your back pass, play pass game, your play action game. He said, hypothetically, you have 60 plays, 10 in each category, and only, 7 of those 10 are run the exact same way by the quarterback. So the defense doesn't exactly know what the play is, but the offense also doesn't need to be dictated by the defense. They just go, boom. If 1's not there, you go to 2. Nope, 2's not there, you go to a check down. You don't always have to say, okay, well, those 2 safeties drop back. LaFleur put it simply, if we're not throwing past 10 yards, why do we care what the safeties are doing? He said, you don't. Just go through your pure progression. That's all it is, pure progression, 1 to 2 to check down or run. And he even said Zach Wilson could do more of the running element to it because of his, physical, I guess, upgrade to himself. He added about 15 pounds, so there is that running element where he's not going to take the shots. So I thought that was good that he really got into it and, showed that the offense doesn't necessarily say, hey, on this play or every single time you get up to the line of scrimmage, you need to look at what the 2 safeties are doing. No, we're just going to run our offense. If they're in zone, usually, we have good zone plays like little stop routes by the tight end, and those are the little things that Zach Wilson needed to get better at. So the fact that we were able to hear a little bit more detail about that was awesome. And then the last one was Jeff Ulrich. I think a lot of people at this point have heard the quote. It was about the defensive line rotation. I'll pull the exact quote, and then I'll give my paraphrasing. He said, this defensive line, this style in which we play, this attacks front, it's best when you're playing 30 to 35 snaps a game. we didn't have that luxury last year because of the depth that we didn't have. So the fact that we have some more depth now, you can get back to the essence of the front. So last year, it was the same thing. Halfway through the year, somebody was asking about defensive line rotation and why X player wasn't getting enough reps. I believe it was Quentin Williams. And Rob Saleh basically said, Rob Saleh basically said that 40 reps per game was the max for a defensive lineman. If he's running more than 40 reps a game, he's either not running hard enough to match that attack front style where they want you to get winded if you're running 40 snaps, or you're just not good enough to truly do what they want in the system, so you're able to be out there more. So basically what it came down to is 40 was the ceiling. Now we're walking it back to 30 to 35 snaps per game. Truthfully, anybody that watches Quentin Williams knows that he deserves more than 30 to 35 snaps per game. Jonathan Franklin-Myers deserves more than 30 to 35 snaps per game. So I did a little bit of digging. I posted it on Twitter the number of times that a player went over 40 reps last year in one single game, and it was close to 20. I don't have the exact number. I could count it up when I'm done, but I think it was like 18, 19, or 20 times that a defensive lineman ran more than 40 snaps. So in a perfect world, yes, 30 to 35 snaps, keep everybody healthy, similar to what they want to do with the running backs, a rotation. It's not going to end up being like that. Health always dictates that you're going to use your best players when you need them, when they're healthy. If Quentin Williams is available for 17 games and he's playing 30 to 35 snaps a game, I'm sorry. I don't even care about the contract. That's just misuse of your assets. He was a third overall pick who's still ascending. He's still young. He deserves to be out there 65% of the plays, not 40 to 45% of the plays. Last year he played 53% of the snaps. So that number already needs to go up, and they want to trim it back. So to me, I don't buy it. I hope they play more. I know it's an attack-style defense, but you got to play your best players at the end of the day. So to me, the statement, while it does, bring about a lot of discussion, I think when we get into it, there's going to be a lot more than, 30 to 35 snaps for Quentin Williams in a game.
Yeah, it's quite interesting when you hear those numbers. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's probably more than, what we anticipate on a Sunday. And I completely agree when you're talking about players like, John Franklin-Myers or Quentin Williams or, Carl Lawson. I really don't care what their snap count is in critical points in the game. If we need, a QB hit or a sack or a pressure, or we need to just get the football back to our offense, I want the best players on the field regardless of, their snap count. So definitely some interesting stuff, some great notes you have there, Dylan. I'm glad we got time to squeeze that in before the man of the hour comes to join us, and I believe he is waiting in the studio right now as we speak. So let's get Mr. Greenbean on the radio. Greenbean, is this you, buddy?
Hey, how you guys doing?
What's happening?
Yeah, I almost forgot to call in. I was just listening to Dylan. I could have listened for another hour.
I don't know if I could have talked for another hour. I needed a big drink after that one.
Yeah, right. I bet you were killing it though, man. That was interesting stuff. I got a lot to listen to there.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, Dylan always comes well prepared with the notes, and definitely love his insight all the time. But Greenbean, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a long time, man. I hope all is well with you and the family, and always enjoy talking about Jets football with you. So we had to get you back onto the pod so that our listeners could get another taste of your greatness. But before we get into Jets ball, I have a quick question for you, a little something off topic here. The last time that we were all together here, I was curious about your roller coaster tour. And I got to know, are you still traveling the country and going to different roller coasters? And if so, what in the world is your count on how many roller coasters you've been on?
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, I'm sad to announce that about a month and a half ago, 2 months now, we ended the tour. So we did a little over 2 years on the road, living in an RV. You know what? It was the main catalyst. My son wants to play high school ball, and we couldn't do it, out there on the road. But so it was that and some other things. And we made it to a little over, I think it was 260 coasters in the past 2 years. And what threw a kink in that was the fact that we left. As soon as we left, COVID started, so everything shut down, and we lost like 6 months there. But, we still made it on 260, so we're about to buy a house, Alex. I'm about to get, literally officially off the road back into a house and let my son experience high school football.
That's incredible, man. Congratulations on making the change there. And holy smokes, man. I'll tell you this right now. 260, that's about 258 more than I've been on my life. I've had 2 in my experience. I believe I was at Great Adventure as an early teenager. And I think I experienced one of my first panic attacks as a young man as my heart was coming through my chest for the Batman ride. And I learned a lot about myself that day. And I think that's why I'm so intrigued about your situation, because you sound like you're pretty fearless to me, having done that 260 darn times. And that is definitely pretty cool.
I'm definitely not fearless. I'm afraid every time. I got to be honest. I do love it, but when I'm going up the hill, Alex, every time I think to myself, why do I do this? That's literally what I think, every lift hill. So I can relate to that. And I'm getting older, man. I actually, I almost passed out on one this past year, a 300-footer up in Ohio. Yeah, I did something called a gray out, which is when you almost passed out because of the intensity of the coaster it had. But it was my first, and I thought, ooh, wow, okay. All right, I might be getting old here, guys. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. That gray out, that's the first time I've heard that phrase. Wow, that's pretty intense there. That might have been a game changer for me entirely. But that is definitely very, very cool. Well,
so
let's
get
right
here talking
into it.
Now.
Let's pivot here, because when you mentioned that, why am I doing this again? It almost sounds like when I get myself hyped up for this New York team, and then the real game starts hitting. I say, why do I do this to myself every year? But we have some good news to share tonight, and I want to start off the show or our roundtable discussion talking about some 3 players of our past. And the Jets recently announced that there are going to be 3 new inductees for the Ring of Honor, and some great Jets right here. And we'll start off with the infamous Darrelle Revis, Nick Mangold, and D'Brickashaw Ferguson. And, 3 iconic players that I'm very, very happy to say that I got to see as a young man, and just watch the progression of them do some pretty sensational things. They were on the team that had the most success that I've physically seen. And Darrelle Revis, to this day, is still one of my favorite players all time on the Jets roster. And I have to say here, I'm a little shocked that they haven't gone in sooner, but maybe there's a time period that they have to be off the team for this stuff to happen. So, Greenbean, I know that you have a little something to add to this too. So, Dylan, if you want to go and share your thoughts on the Ring of Honor inductees, and then you can go into your segment, Greenbean.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So I believe I've talked about it on this podcast. I was talking with you, Alex, before we went live, that I told the story about watching the 2006 draft from my friend's treehouse and just completely confused why the Jets took 2 offensive linemen in the first round. And, lo and behold, these guys end up being in the Ring of Honor. So a little bit of egg on my face as a kid, but, you don't appreciate offensive line play when you're just an 8-year-old throwing the ball in the backyard. So I always thought that was cool. My wife has a Mangold jersey. I got Brandon Marshall for Christmas that year, and she got Mangold, so now I'm kind of jealous that she got Mangold, and I wish I got the Mangold, honestly. But always good to see that these guys get, the recognition they deserve. I'm glad Darrelle got it too. I think he deserves it, even though he left and won the championship and came back and whatever. I think he's the number one Jets player. Like, when you just think of the Jets, if you don't think of Joe Namath, usually the old heads think of Joe Namath, but like somebody like around my age, under 30, they're going to think Darrelle Revis, maybe Chad Pennington just for the quarterback's sake, but Darrelle Revis is that first name that pops up when you think of the Jets. So it's always good to see, the players that you grew up with finally get the recognition. So watching Nick Mangold get his, the introduction on the podcast with Mark Sanchez when Woody came in and surprised them all. That was awesome. Nick looked really excited, genuinely excited. So, they do stuff for the Jets community. They're still engaged. They're active. I saw Nick Mangold at the Jets game, outside just at a little tent wearing a Santa hat when I went to the Saints game last year. So it's just always good to see these guys, around the community and still involved. So, just nothing but respect for those three guys.
Right on. And Greenbean, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, like Dylan said, how could you not love these three guys? And it's been a dry spell for us, right? We've had a lot of some bigger names come in, the Le'Veon Bells of the world, and kind of flame out, and then we drafted some bigger name guys, and they don't do too well here, our first-round picks. But there was a time when we did quite well with draft picks. That Mangini and Tannenbaum duo, they started out really, they meant business. And it's funny, I have such a different take of that draft with the Brickishaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold. Now, granted, I'm a little bit older, so I'm a little, I'm a little bit like, hey, I'm a little more into offensive linemen. But I understand, like, being a kid, you want a wide receiver, you want a quarterback, something fun. Mm-hmm. But at that time, it was interesting because we traded John Abraham for the second first-round pick that year. And lots of Jets fans, even though we were all kind of mad at John Abraham at that time, we were still very sad to see him go. So the fact that they got Nick Mangold for that pick is the only saving grace for that, trading away such a dominant edge rusher like John Abraham. But when Mangini came in, and the first thing he did was take a left tackle and a center named Brick and Mangold, it was just a different feel, It was like, okay, our new coach knows what he's doing. He's not messing around. And it was, just the whole time, we needed one of those guys, missed any time. Mangold didn't miss any real time till later in his career. And Brickishaw Ferguson missed one snap, and that was by design, not because of injury or anything like that. So we can kind of take that stuff for granted, just how available they were for us. They were stalwarts. We knew who our left tackle and our center was, and they were among the best in the league for a decade. And it's great to see them honored like this. It's interesting, right? Like, they got drafted together, they played for a decade together. Now they go into the Ring of Honor together. I think those guys are just kind of cosmically joined at the figurative hip for the rest of their lives. It's just an interesting thing how that all worked out. And I couldn't love those guys as Jets players more than I do. And I'm happy for them. I think it's great. I think Nick Mangold might end up being a Hall of Famer as well. I mean, he's got the numbers, and he had the NFL respect as well, But Revis is an interesting one because, obviously we all love Revis. I think he's probably the best cornerback that we've ever had. I don't think there's too much debate about that. I hear James Hasty, Aaron Glenn, but they're not Revis. And, for him to kind of be as good as he was, that he's probably top 5 Jets of all time too. So what he was able to do on the football field will probably never be replicated again. Taking the best, biggest name wide receivers in the NFL and just completely shutting them down. The term Revis Island. What a fun term to have. Like they visit Revis Island and they're never heard from again. And it was such a great thing. Now, obviously, at the end, we traded him. You know, he got injured. We traded him. He went to the Patriots, won a Super Bowl, comes back, had a good year in 2015, and then he kind of got fat and slow, and he just kind of ended his career on a little bit of a low note. But all that said, I think he's a first-ballot Hall of Famer. He's 7 Pro Bowls. I think it was 5 All-Pros, maybe something along those lines. I forget. But I think he's one of those guys where, you know, as Jets fans, we should be proud like that we had him. Yes, he went to the Bucs and the Pats for 1 year each, but he's a Jet. You know, he was a Jet. He started here, he ended here. And even though there were those little bit of a negative wrinkles, Revis is just, you know, he's just the best, man. Now, the only thing that bothers me, guys, is that I'm happy. I think all these guys deserve it, but we skipped over somebody that was the era before that to get to these guys, and it bothers me because Mo Lewis was ignored during his career as well. He was the Rookie of the Year in 1991, and he was completely ignored. He had better or comparable numbers to Junior Seau and Derek Thomas and all these legendary Hall of Famers. Mo Lewis had those numbers. And look, if you don't want to say he's a Hall of Fame player, fine, he is. If he was on the Cowboys, he'd be in the Hall of Fame or one of those teams. But I'd like to see him at least recognized by his team, which is the Ring of Honor. And he's a 13-year vet. He only missed games 1 year, so he was available 16 games for 12 years. He did end up making it to 3 Pro Bowls and 2 All-Pros, even though they ignored him for the larger part of his career. And it just makes me sad, man. It's a lot of Jets fans, as I'm sure you know, think of Mo Lewis for one play. And it's that play where he crushed Drew Bledsoe, and a 6th-round pick came in and ended up being the greatest quarterback of all time. But I hate seeing him blamed for that because we would want our guy to do that 100 times out of 100. Like, if we're playing Lamar Jackson week 1 and C.J. Mosley runs over there and crushes them and he leaves the game, we're going to be happy about it. You know, we're going to think it was a great play. If Brett Hundley comes in and is the greatest quarterback of all time, you know what I mean? It's just the craziest thing. But anyway, not to demean what we're doing. I think it's a great move by the Jets to do that. I love that Woody announced it. I think all 3 of those guys are deserving, but they were an era after Mo Lewis. And it's just, I'd like to see that guy get some of his just respect because, again, he was ignored by the NFL. Let's not ignore him as the New York Jets.
Yeah, great take there, Greeny. I love the fact that you brought him up. Growing up, you know, as a kid in the 90s watching this team, he was definitely one of the staples and one of the best playmakers on our defense. And when you needed a play, Mo was usually the guy that would get you there. And I'm not 100% sure, but maybe he had something to do with the Modell's deal that they had. And, man, when he would make a play, you knew that they were going to play that little chime, got to go to Mo's. And that was always something I remembered growing up watching the games. And, you know, here's a fun fact for you, too. Not only was he a great Jet, but he also had more defensive touchdowns than the infamous Darrelle Revis with 4 touchdowns in his career, and Revis had 3. So just a little fun, you know, tidbit that I found today when I was looking at the stats on those 2 guys. Because you were the one that had mentioned that. I know you just recently talked about that on your show, and definitely cool. And, you know, if anyone's listening out there, you still have time to do the right thing by Mo Lewis. So great stuff there. But Greenbean, I have to ask you because it's something that, you know, Dylan and I have talked about, you know, since, you know, the Jets' final game of 2021. We've been talking about the offseason. We've been talking about, you know, where they need to make improvements and what players they should target and who should they, you know, go for in the draft. So I'm just curious, how do you feel about what Joe Douglas and company has done this offseason? Is there a specific free agent acquisition that really, really stands out to you? And, you know, go ahead and, you know, tell us how you felt about the draft as well, because I'm sure our listeners would like to know that.
Yeah, well, isn't it nice? I don't know if you guys know, but I get made fun of a lot for my unabashed love for the tight end position, right? I'm a really big kind of tight end homer. I love tight ends, and the Jets, sadly, haven't really put too much emphasis on the position over there, the last 10, 15 years. Every now and then we'll bring in a guy, but overall it's been like an afterthought. So seeing Joe Douglas really, just dive into the tight end position this offseason has been an absolute delight to me. It even surprised me. Like, I thought we were definitely going to bring one in free agency, and I thought we'd bring one in the draft, and then I thought we'd keep Yeboah, West Coast, somebody like that. But when we went out there, got Uzomah, I thought that was a great move. I thought that was a good one. I did want I was kind of leaning toward Hayden Hurst, but I was happy with Uzomah. And but then when he went out and signed Conklin as well, I couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, now we're going to be able to give LaFleur what he wants to do. Remember, the first 4 or 5 games of the season, he was trying to shoehorn 12 and 22 personnel, keeping 2 tight ends on the field, and we just didn't have the personnel to do it. Croft and Brown and Griffin, they weren't able to do it, so we had to revert back to much more 11. So we went out there and we get these tight ends, and then we still use a premium pick with a 3rd rounder on Rucker. I couldn't be happier. I think it's fantastic. I like the guys. I like the attention, and I think that we're going to see a really different, impact from the tight end position. Now, Laken Tomlinson was literally my number 1 free agent. My first move that I wanted was now he's ended up being on the left guard, but my number 1 position of concern was right guard, and he was my number 1 right guard to draft because of his familiarity with the system and the coaches. I mean, they coached him 2 years ago, so he's going to come in without missing a beat. So I couldn't believe that they actually finally went out there and got a guy that I wanted. It's just so rare for me. I'm always going, okay, well, I like that guy too. They never go get the guy I want. So I was really happy with free agency. I love Jordan Whitehead. I admittedly didn't know much about DJ Reid. Since he came aboard, I obviously did a lot of digging, and I like him. I like him a lot, actually, a lot more than I thought I would. But I like that they went out there and got some vets for a very, very young cornerback and defensive back room, and they didn't go out there and get like old men like a Tyrann Mathieu or anything like that. They went out there and got 2 25-year-old guys. So they're vets, but they're still incredibly young, maybe about to hit their prime kind of guys. So I was really happy with free agency, more than I have been in recent years. And to follow that with that draft, man, I mean, I'll admit, when we took Sauce, I wasn't psyched about it. I like Sauce Gardner as the player, but I didn't think that was going to, cornerback was our priority. I really wanted that edge rusher. I wanted to make sure at 4 we got the number 1 edge rusher that we could get, and I was a little bit taken back. And then so I said, okay, well, we're definitely going to get one at 10. It'll be Jermaine Johnson or Karlaftis or somebody. And then when we took Garrett Wilson at 10, honestly, guys, I didn't know what the hell I was watching. I didn't know what was going on. Again, I love both players, but I couldn't believe that we made it out of the first without addressing edge rusher. And then that trade up to 26 to get Jermaine Johnson, who slipped so much further than anybody thought he would. Then it all made tons of sense. I was giddy with joy. I couldn't believe that we got Sauce, Wilson, and Jermaine Johnson in the first round. And then, guys, I was talking about it for a couple of weeks before the draft. Now, I didn't think it was going to happen, but I talked about the likelihood and whether or not I would be happy if they drafted Bryce Hall with their 2nd-round pick. And I can't believe that they did it. And I'm so incredibly happy about their commitment to the offense. They want the offense to succeed. They got their cornerback, they got their edge rusher, but they gave Zach Wilson 3 tight ends. Well, at that point, 2, but they gave him 2 tight ends, fixed the offensive line, got the highest drafted wide receiver since 2001, and then got the best running back in the draft. So I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, this is the best draft. Now, on paper, of course, we don't know. They could all go in there and flame out. We know this better than anybody. But as far as their direction and what Joe Douglas actually did, I could not be happier. I even love Max Mitchell and obviously Rucker and Michael Clemens. I didn't know too much, but I did a lot on Max Mitchell. I loved him as a prospect. So I think this draft was fantastic. I think it's the perfect, very targeted free agency to couple with this draft, re-signing Berrios and some other guys from our own team. I couldn't be happier. I think, there's reason for excitement. Like you said in the beginning, here we go again, letting myself get happy, and I'm doing it too. I am, but I think this year we might actually have reason to do so. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm really glad that you.
Yeah, go for it, Bill.
I was going to say I'm really glad that you led with the tight end position because that's something that we've been hammering for weeks on this podcast leading up to the draft, free agency, the whole thing. We were just saying, like, if you're going to put that many tight ends on the field, have good tight ends. Like, don't just run Tyler Croft and Ryan Griffin and Trevon Wesco out there. Like, actually, like, overhaul the position. And similar to the safety position, and I know they didn't do that, but I said that they needed to – I would rather them overcorrect the problem rather than, take a half measure to try to patchwork the problem. Because they could have, re-signed Tyler Croft and, brought in a middle free agent here, like maybe someone less than Tyler Conklin, and thought, okay, we upgraded a little bit, we're good. But, no, they decided to go, put the pedal down on the position and really revamp it. So I'm glad that you led with the tight ends there.
Yeah, right on.
Well said, man. Well said.
One of the things that we've been talking about, for the last few months is trying to identify the weak spots of this roster and trying to improve it as much as you can. And that's the title of tonight's show, is Strengths and Weaknesses. And I really feel that, Joe Douglas and company have done a really, really good job, identifying where they need to improve, and not only just, like you said, Dylan, going in with a half measure, maybe signing one player and then hoping you can coach up some of the guys that are already in the depth charts, getting right after it, being aggressive, and going after things that were once weaknesses, and now they're starting to look more balanced and possibly as a strength. So to start this strength and weakness segment here, Dylan, I'm going to go to you first, and then Greenbean, you can follow up. What position group do you feel has improved the most and is now a strong point on this roster?
Well, when you add in the wrinkle of the improvement part, I think it kind of takes away from the defensive line, but at the same time, you didn't have Carl Lawson last year. So my answer is going to be the defensive line. When you look at it on paper, the starting 4 looks like Carl Lawson, Quinnen Williams, Sheldon Rankins, and Jermaine Johnson as of right now. That's technically 2 new starters on the defensive line because Lawson wasn't here and Jermaine's a rookie, obviously. So you're no longer going to have games where Shaq Lawson is, taking the majority of your outside reps, or Ronald Blair is taking your edge 1 reps for the last quarter of the season. So I think defensive line as a whole, if you want to get more specific, edge position, I think that is the most improved and also a strength. Looking at the depth chart, they have eight edge rushers right now on the roster: Lawson, Curry, Huff, Clemens, Johnson, Zuniga, Martin, Rashad Jr., and Bradley Anai. So even if they trim that number, down to 6, still think it's a strong group. Jermaine Johnson, Jacob Martin, they're all new. Vinny Curry's technically new, so this has to be the most improved. We didn't get to see any of these guys last year in the green and white, so I have to say edge rusher or D-line overall has to be the most improved in my opinion.
Right on. And Greenbean, your thoughts on the strongest position group on this roster?
Well, I got to be honest. I was going to go D-line too, and I think Dylan just nailed it with everything I said. I even think some of the bottom of the roster guys like Bradley and I are gonna be a little bit better than we're used to on the bottom, and I'm really excited. But let's talk about the offensive line for a minute. I think, like, granted, we've only really added one new piece. I mean, it depends on Beckton and all that, but let's assume that Beckton's at the at left tackle. Just for this conversation, we'll say Beckton. You add Laken Tomlinson to the left guard. You got Connor McGovern, McGovern, and then you have AVT and George Fant. That, plugging in Laken Tomlinson for where our line was weakest with Greg Van Roten. Greg Van Roten was so bad last year that his replacement, LBT, didn't even make the top 200 of guards as far as, I think it was PFF, or he didn't even make the top 200 last year of, quality guards or whatever it was. And he was a market improvement over GVR. We know Beckton got hurt because of GVR, and he was on skates the whole season last year. And granted, the offensive line as a whole took some time to get the system and everything. The first, 5-6 games of the season, they looked confused and they weren't able to pick up stunts, and really they weren't comfortable in their assignments. So I think, being their second year in the system, this is their second year for some of these guys to be playing alongside of one another. And then adding Laken Tomlinson, again, he was coached by LaFleur, by John Benton. Like, they were, not only do they know him, he was with them 2 years ago. So I think bringing him into that mix is really going to allow us to see a more comfortable Zach Wilson. And let's add the tight ends to that. Everybody knows if you have a dual-purpose tight end, somebody who's not just like a Kyle Pitts type who can go out and receive, but you have guys like Uzoma, like Conklin, who can be a factor in the blocking portion before they peel off and function as somewhat of a safety valve for the quarterback. That adds to the protection as well. And, guys, this is the other thing. Michael Carter is a pretty good, back as far as protection goes, but it's one of Bryce Hall's strengths as well. So as opposed to having, Ty Johnson out there, who was pretty much a liability in pass protection, now we got Bryce Hall and Michael Carter to go with tight ends that can block on top of a revamped offensive line. If Beckton's healthy, I have no questions about his talent. And then obviously Laken Tomlinson. I think our offensive line could be the most improved unit on the whole team if a couple of things just don't crumble like we're used to here.
Yeah, great takes, and obviously the trenches is where the game is won and lost. So being that the Jets have found ways to make both of those aspects stronger should definitely, create a better equation to, making this a winning success for the team. And I agree with both you guys. I've been going back and forth. I lean a little bit more toward the defensive line as the position group that has the most talent and strength. But like you just mentioned, Greenbean, bringing back Beckton and that talent, George Fant coming off one of his best years statistically, and then you add in, an all-pro guy like Tomlinson, we should really, really see a much improved product from those position groups wholeheartedly.
It's exciting.
So, this is, one of the pivotal points of, I think the Jets franchise was this offseason and this draft, and I really feel like, all arrows are pointing up right now. And this is going to be an odd one because as we're being so positive and everything like that, we're going to switch, our takes right here, and we're going to start looking at some of the weaknesses on this roster. So, Dylan, you can start, and then Greenbean, you can follow up. Where do you guys feel is our weakness as of today? And, obviously, how can they improve that? Dylan, your thoughts?
Before I get into the weakness, I just want to say that we all overlooked the kicker position as the most improved. I think when you go from Matt Amendola, Alex Kessman, Eddie Pinheiro, and then you get Greg the Leg, I know he's probably not 100% of what he has been in his career, but I think that's a market improvement as well. So kicker needs to be an honorable mention in the strengths and improvements category. But as far as weaknesses,
you're not lying.
As far as weaknesses go, I have two. I'm going to try to counter Reid Greenbean's thoughts and not take his idea, and I'm going to say the safety position. I know they added Jordan Whitehead, and I think he is a penciled starter at the strong safety position, no doubt about it. I believe it was PFF, it might have been another outlet, had rankings for safeties, and Jordan Whitehead actually ranked as a higher in-the-box safety as Jamal Adams. So I thought that was really funny, full circle moment for Jets fans. I like the addition of Jordan Whitehead, but outside of that, everything looks really bleak. Lamarcus Joyner played like 10 snaps last year before he tore his elbow or something, so that's not good. We basically haven't seen what he can do in this defense. Your backups look like Ashton Davis and Jason Pinnock, which I've been such an Ashton Davis fan. I've been rooting for him this whole time, and it's so hard when he just takes such bad angles in the run game. Jason Pinnock obviously isn't a safety by nature. He's a cornerback that has transitioned. I think he's done a good job. Ulrich said in his press conference that he believes Pinnock has done a good job. Does doing a good job lead to being a key backup in the defense? I'm not sure. And then after that, you have Will Parks, Elijah Riley, and then a bunch of small guys like Javonte Moffett, Kia Nakua, and Tony Adams, who's a UDFA. So outside of Whitehead, it really does look like a lot left to be desired at the safety position. And I've said it before, I even tweeted it, I think safety is a more important position in this defense than cornerback. I think the middle of the defense is so important. Defensive tackle, middle linebackers, and safeties are so important to this defense that having Jordan Whitehead and not really a good, reliable free safety over the top. I know Joyner can be if he's healthy, but that's so up in the air that safety just is such a question mark to me that it could be good, but I don't even see a path where this safety group is looked at as top tier, even top half of the league, even if Jordan Whitehead does do what I think he can do. So safety is my weak point that needs a little bit of upgrading. I'm not exactly sure how they can even upgrade it at this point. There aren't many good names left on the free agent market. So they basically have to rely on Markel Marquand, or whatever his name is, the safeties coach. They need to rely on him a lot. He did a lot last year. Same with the cornerbacks coach, Tony Oden. They're going to have to rely on those two guys a lot again. So safety is my position. What do you got, Greenbean?
Well, I thank you for leaving linebacker on the table for me. I had a feeling you were going to. You want? Well, and I agree. And that wasn't that fun to see Jordan Whitehead just, slid in there right before Jamal Adams. The way I look at that is it's the beginning of the end of this stuff. It's the beginning of the Jets actually getting some accolades and these guys that we let go, right? And look, I think it's important to mention today, I almost forgot, today is the 3-year anniversary of us hiring Joe Douglas. So when we look at, where we came from, what the team was at that point to what it is now, it's just so nice to see this kind of changing of the guard, guys like Le'Veon Bell and Sam Darnold and Jamal Adams. It's nice to see, who we're kind of leaning towards as our pillars, and Jordan Whitehead can really be that. So I'm excited about him, man. And Pinnock, we'll see how he does. They seem to like him, but it's nice to see him carve out a role because I didn't love him as a cornerback, if I'm being honest. So it'll be nice. But the linebackers are interesting to me because I was convinced that within the first 4 picks in the draft, now this is when we had, 4, 10, 35, and 38, I was convinced that one of them would be a linebacker. If not, then the 3rd round pick was 100% going to be a linebacker. And this is, it's one of those things that kind of made the Bryce Hall pick so surprising because Nakobe Dean slid. He was there. So I thought that would be the way that they would more than likely go when they traded up from 38 to 36. I was like, okay, this is definitely Nakobe Dean because he's not supposed to be here. So they want to ensure that they'll grab him, and they grabbed the running back. which was obviously a positive. I love it. I really do. But I'm surprised that they left free agency and the draft without any linebacker help. Now, we did sign Marcel Harris, who's, he's one of those solid guys, that 215, 220-pound safety linebacker hybrid types. And it seems like they really want to give Sherwood and Nasruddin and even Quincy Williams the shot to prove themselves. I mean, I think it's risky. I really do. And I was hoping that they gave C.J. Mosley that snarling animal to play next to. That's what I wanted really, really bad. But, look, I can't be unhappy with all the places that they have addressed, and some positions are going to get left behind a little bit, but I don't think it's necessarily left behind in their mind. I think, again, Saleh really believes in Sherwood. He talked him up numerous times last year, so he's coming back from that Achilles. Nasruddin's another one switching from safety to linebacker. So I think we're going to see a lot more two linebacker sets with extra defensive backs on the field, which is, I think, will probably be like Sauce, Reid, Hall, and Carter, as opposed to more safeties. And I think we're going to see that. So if that's the case, then we're using two linebackers more than depending on three. I think that it could be the position that's more comfortable to leave behind this year and see what you got with the other guys. But if I'm being really honest, that's the position I'm most nervous about. I just, remember last year we could not stop a screen or any tight ends or running back for our life. We just could not cover them. And Quincy Williams was on the field, and he was getting torched quite often for all of his his highlight plays, coming at, shooting around like a missile and laying Derrick Henry out and all those kinds of things. For all that, there's an equal part of him getting burned, and I really wanted to see us address that. So that's the position I think I'm most nervous about, is the linebackers, and I'm really curious to see how they, number one, how these players progress, but number two, how they utilize their personnel packages, because, again, if it's a weakness, I'd like to see them be able to mask it a little bit. I'd say the linebackers for me.
Greenbean, that's interesting because that's where I went with this too. I'm not going to lie, Dylan, I was looking at the safety position group, and that was my second choice because just not familiar with Whitehead, having seen him play every Sunday like I have other safeties on this roster. I'm curious about the Lamarcus Joyner situation because the Jets spoke very highly of him last year. So, that to me is a little bit unknown too. But like you said, Greenbean, if anything were to happen to C.J. Mosley and you look at the rest of the depth in that position group, not a lot excites me here. So, a lot of the success of this defense and at the second level of this defense is going to, be revolved around C.J. Mosley and how well he plays. And he played phenomenal last year. He came in great shape, and, he brought his weight down a little bit, and it clearly, showed all of his capabilities. But outside of him and Quincy Williams, nobody else at the linebacker position was really, really standing out as much as those two. And as great as Quincy Williams is against the run, I really would not want to see him in the number one role and being as our coverage linebacker. I just think that is one of his weaknesses. And, this is going to be or a lot's going to fall upon the coaches and how they can coach up the guys underneath Mosley to keep that whole group balanced. So I definitely agree with that take about the linebacker position giving me, the most nervous feelings about the roster as a whole. But I'm looking at the clock here, gentlemen, and we're just about an hour into it. Greenbean, I know that you've got something going on in around 8 o'clock, so I don't want to hold you up too much so you can prepare for that. I do like to say, thank you again for making the time to come on and join Dylan and I for this week and talk some Jets ball. And I'd just like to, throw the mic back to you. so that you can just, tell our listeners where they can find your content and where to follow you, and, go ahead and plug yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. Look, you guys know I sincerely, dig both of your guys' points. I love the show. I think you guys are fantastic. So I really do appreciate you having me on. Anytime you guys ask me, I'm always excited to come back on. So thank you. Tonight, if anybody's getting their appetites wet, with this show and you're looking for more, every Tuesday night I go over to Jets Talk 24/7 YouTube page, and we do the Talking Jets panel with Matt O'Leary, Ryan, and myself, and we do that for 2 hours. And then after that, tonight, I go back to my channel, which is Greenbean Jets Fan on YouTube, and we do the After Hours Jets Fest at from 10:30 to midnight. So we got lots of Jet Talk today, man. But yeah, you can always find me at Greenbean Jets Fan on YouTube and greenbeanjetsfan.com. And as always, I just gave JetNation their, a video for this week, and I do weekly vids over there at jetnation.com and on the forums and such. So yeah, man, this is great. We're having a fantastic off season, guys. That's my thought, and I think we're gonna have some fun this season. It's all gonna start when we beat Baltimore. So thanks for having me on.
Oh, love it.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Thank you,
Greenbean. Love the takes, man. Go get some coffee. You got a long night ahead of you. Everybody, you heard where to find the man. Don't hesitate, and go get yourself your daily dose of Greenbean and his awesomeness with JetNation and his YouTube channel. Again, thank you so much. We really appreciate the time tonight, Greenbean.
All right, guys. Have a great night. Thanks again.
Take care.
Be well. All right, Dylan. Well, that was a really, really good show. I had a lot of fun. You guys both killed it tonight. Takes were really, really good. Loved, the different ideas you guys have and the insight that you guys bring. I just feel that both of you guys bring a little something to the table, and that's why I love talking ball with you guys. But, Dylan, I think now is a good time to close out the show. So, if you have any parting thoughts or anything that you want to touch upon, the floor is yours, because I'm going to go get ready to go watch the Rangers, and hopefully we take it down tonight. And that means we're coming back home for Thursday. We're closing it out to go to the Stanley Cup. I don't have much blue here, but I got to go find something blue to throw on. But any last thoughts for the night there, Dylan?
Yeah, this was a great show. I love when we have Greenbean on. He always pumps me up with a little bit of confidence when I give my takes, so I always appreciate him. Just a little special announcement before we go, teasing next week so that everybody stays tuned. We're having another special guest. This will be our third special guest in a row for the month of June. We're starting it off hot for the summer, and we're going to have former Jets special teams coach Mike Westhoff on the show next week. He's going to call in. He's going to talk about, the current state of the Jets. We're going to, ask him questions about his time with the Jets, as well as the Saints and other spots in the NFL, because let's face it, this guy's a legend. I had to do a lot of research because, I'm a younger guy, so he was on the upswing of me becoming a Jets fan with his latter years in the league. So I had to do my research, but man, this guy is he's legendary to say the least. So I'm excited. I was able to confirm the show with him, and we're going to have him on next week, and I can't wait.
Great work, Dylan. Really, really excited that you were able to make that connection and bring one of my favorite coaches, 2-hour show. I'm probably going to be extremely nervous for that one, but I have a week to prepare for it, so this is good.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I said, not a lot of people talk about special team coaches or special teams in general. It's one of the most critical aspects of the football team. You got your 3 different levels with offense, defense, and special teams. And, you don't normally hear about special teams unless if they're making mistakes. And that was one thing that I don't recall happening a lot when Mike Westhoff was on our sideline. And as far as intensity and finding the right talent, I mean, he really, really made that aspect of the game very, very exciting. And he's got a little bit of a hard-nosed, old-school mentality, which I love too. And, just really, really, really excited. Can't wait till next Tuesday. As Dylan just broke it, Mike Westhoff will be joining us next Tuesday, 6:30 p.m., JetNation Radio. So do not forget, make a note on your phone, set the reminder, put this on your calendar. It's going to be a great show. I'm super, super excited. And for everyone else, please don't hesitate to go to JetNation and check out our website. You can download the app. The forums are absolutely insane. We get some of the, biggest hits out of all the NFL forums in the league, and just nonstop with the articles and the YouTube videos with Glenn and Greenbean. And I know, Dylan, you're writing up articles too. And, then we add this show to it, and really, really awesome stuff. We're turning it up. We're about to take flight as we go into the summer and heating it up, as Dylan had said. So do not forget to tune in next week, 6:30 p.m. for JetNation Radio. This is your host, Alex Rallo, signing off for Dylan Termerman. Everyone have a great week. And as always, let's go Jets.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at JetNation Radio. Glenn is at AceFan23, and Alex is at NYJetsLife24.
Until next time,
go Jets!